This is Under One Roof MTL on CJD 800. We are demystifying home ownership right here from noon to 1 p.m. My name is Robin Flynn, joined in studio as always by LJ Aguinaga of LJ Realties. Hi, LJ.
How you doing?
Good. We've also got Fred Pichette and Martin Spalding of Fred and Martin Mortgages. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon, Robin.
I'm going to apologize for the pipes. I'm feeling a little bit under the weather, so it doesn't sound like me, but it's me.
It's these dulcet undertones. You sound like a jazz singer right now. It's fantastic. Let's start with our trivia question of the week, brought to you by Felix and Norton Cookies. You can visit their store at the Blue Haven Shopping Center, 3705 St. John's Boulevard in DDO. The first person to text in the correct response to 514-790-0800 will receive cookies from Felix and Norton delivered straight to their door. Question this week: what is the difference between an open and a closed mortgage? We've discussed that at length on this show. I believe it was also featured in the Mortgage Minute not too long ago.
Could be.
So if you've been paying attention, you'll be rewarded. 514-790-0800. And please include your name as well so we can give you a shout out when we announce you on the air. Lots of stuff in the news this week, guys. And
is there? Is there really? Are you sure about that, Robin?
Don't you ever wish sometimes you could just hit pause for 24 hours so you could just catch up on everything that's going on? That's how I feel sometimes.
I want a daily summary.
Yes, that would be wonderful.
That's it.
I think the New York Times does that in the mornings, sort of like a rundown of what you need to know for the day. It's pretty handy in podcast format.
Well,
anyway.
there you go.
But yeah, inflation in Canada up to 2.6% year over year for February. What does this mean for interest rates? Because I know the uncertainty in the economy lately, tariff threats, things like that, have meant that interest rates have been being cut consistently. We were expecting Bank of Canada to announce another cut in April, but now inflation is up. So what does this mean for interest rates?
It's putting some doubts on that April cut.
Yeah.
LJ, what do you... Oh, I just saw LJ raise his hand. No, he's adjusting his mic, but...
I think we're probably going to start seeing a hold on the interest rates. Is the reality, right? Interest rates, 2.6%. That's up. It's below the 2% threshold that we wanted to be at. We know that we would have gotten there sooner if it wasn't for the GST break that we had up until February 15th, if I'm not mistaken. So this is the direction that we have been heading in, and with an upcoming election potentially that we might hear about in the next hour, we shall see. There's a lot of uncertainty, but inflation being up is never a good sign. So I suspect that we're going to see a hold on interest rates.
Is that proof that the GST break actually worked if it staved off inflation for a few months?
No, it's a false effect, effectively, right? We covered up a 5% cost on everything, and inflation still went up. It just we didn't see the same amounts in the previous month because it was not paid.
No, the bottom line is that inflation's going in the wrong direction. And so when inflation starts to rise, we're not going to start cutting rates. Or we may hold rates, or we may increase rates to attack inflation. And I think the big issue right now is all the uncertainty. Yeah. Are there tariffs? Are there not tariffs? What has Trump said today? Where are we going with this election? It's just craziness. And, we talk to clients on a daily basis, and we monitor this stuff on a daily basis. And even Fred and I have trouble keeping track as to what's going on, because we keep seeing new announcements almost on a day-to-day basis, whether it's the variable rates, that the discount is not as severe as it used to be, and now they're pushing their fixed rates. It's just, clients make a decision, and then they call us back the next day and they say, "Oh, well, we saw this." And I said, "Yeah, absolutely, you saw this." And at one point, you just have to take a decision and live with your decision, because on a day-to-day basis, the banks are juggling. And so we saw some CIBC announcements this week. But is that a business decision, or is that actually a decision based on where the Bank of Canada is going and where the market is going? Maybe their portfolio is out of whack. In other words, they got too many variable rates, and now they want to increase the amount of fixed rate mortgages they have. Or maybe they've lost some market share, and they're looking to increase their market share. So what are they going to do? They're going to offer crazy rates, but you got to read the fine print. And I know Fred is staring at me right now. And because we had this conversation about 4 times this week. If it's too good to be true, it's too good to be true. Yeah. So as much as a rate looks really enticing, read the fine print. Make sure you know what you're signing. Don't sign blindly.
Well, you says it all.
Oh, I'm sorry, Fred. No, because, we've had a lot of conversations this week, and it's been, I'm not saying confusing, but people who are in the market for mortgages, they work with us, but they're also bombarded by offers, whether it's on their social media feeds or it's through news items that keep breaking, and they keep calling us back and say, well, I saw this, I saw that, I saw this, I saw that. I said, okay, yes, that exists, but it's a short-term close. It's look at there's a cash back, but you need to do this, that, and this to get the cash back. You just got to really go in with eyes wide open. And at one point, if you're comfortable with your decision, then take that decision and live with your decision. Because every day that you change puts you in a situation where it makes you even more vulnerable than you were before.
What does inflation do for real estate prices, LJ?
It goes up. As inflation goes up, real estate prices typically tend to go up as well, because if everyone's willing to spend more, I mean, it goes into real estate as well.
So it's a good thing if you're a seller to see inflation go up?
No, I mean, it's an inverse relationship here, right? Because as inflation goes up, we're going to see
interest rates go up as well.
Correct. Interest rates are going to go up, which means that people's buying power is effectively going to go down.
Gotcha.
So we typically want them to stay down, because that's when interest rates come down, and that's when people are really going to overextend themselves, if you will, or go to the higher end of their budget. So that is the best case scenario. But the last time that inflation went up significantly is after the kind of COVID market, when prices had gone up significantly. So they go hand in hand in that sense.
What does this mean for, debts in general? If everybody was expecting interest rates to come down and maybe they were planning, okay, I'm going to refinance when interest rates come down a little bit. Would you recommend right now, Fred Martin, to refinance now before things maybe start going back up?
Well, to refinance, I would say it depends. If you cannot keep up with your payment, that's a sign you need to refinance. Okay. If you get overwhelmed by your credit card, you're making the minimum payment every month, obviously it might be a sign that you need to refinance. Now, if you need to refinance, forget about the interest rate, because you're paying a credit cards at 24% interest rate. Like if the interest rate is at 4, 3.5, 4.5, you're already making a savings, which is refinancing. It's really if you really see that you have a needs.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's pure math. So just crunch the numbers. Is it worth refinancing? But if you're, let's say, 6 months away from your renewal, then don't refinance now. Wait for your renewal, and then you can refinance without having to pay a penalty. You can refinance without actually having to go to the notary. You have to, there are all kinds of fees. There are all kinds of things that you have to factor in. So is it really worth refinancing? But if you're drowning in debt and your credit cards are maxed out and you can't keep up with the payments, it's affecting your credit score, then, take that decision again and live with that decision and refinance. Use the equity in your home to lower your monthly payments and make it one payment and improve your cash flow. And
I suspect if you're somebody who is struggling to make your payments, you're not going to qualify for the very best interest rate that there is, because you're probably well above that 30% threshold. That's a great point. You're probably late on payments.
Because when you refinance, you need to requalify.
Exactly. Your credit score probably took a hit if you were struggling financially.
Yeah.
So it's important, as I love to keep pointing out, it's not just making your payments on time. It's keeping that balance below 30%, because no one ever told me that.
Well, it's credit usage, right?
Yep. No one ever told me that. They said as long as you make your credits on your payments on time, you're fine.
Minimum payments, but all your credit cards, let's say you've got $10,000 limits and they're all at $9,500.
Yep.
That's going to affect your credit score.
It'll tank your credit score, actually.
That too.
It's terrible.
What I see most of the time is people are waiting too long before taking action, and they add impact on their credit score.
It's just not going to get any better. So take action.
Yep. Do something about it.
This is the Mortgage Minute.
What should you do if your mortgage is up for renewal? This is your Mortgage Minute. Don't sign your current lender's renewal offer. Shop around. Start early. Compare rates. Consider fixed versus variable rates. Check prepayment options. And if refinancing makes sense for you, consider it. If your lender isn't offering the best deal, switch. Talk to a mortgage broker. They'll do the heavy lifting for you. They'll secure the best rate, best terms, and give you peace of mind. Best of all, by being proactive, you could save thousands.
This is Under One Roof MTL on CJD 800. That's One Take Martin Spalding from Fred and Martin Mortgages. Fred Pichette, also from Fred and Martin Mortgages. LJ Aguinaga of LJ Realties. Shopping around for a mortgage is a very challenging period of time, deciding when to shop around for a mortgage, because not everybody's going to do it when their mortgage comes up for maturity, right? Sometimes it makes sense to break your mortgage and do it early.
Well, of course, you got it all right. And well said, Martin. Your mortgage minute was right on. Yes, I'll give you an example right now. One of our clients called us this week, says, Fred, I signed my mortgage 2 years ago in 2023 when the interest rate was at 5.5, 5.6. What do you think? Do you think I could break my mortgage right now and get this new interest rate? Which is a question that most of people who had signed like in 2023 asking all the time now. Is it the right thing to do? Well, if the penalty is not too high, it could be the right move to make. What else you have to look at when you have to renew your mortgage? First, I would say assess your financial needs, where you see yourself for the next 5 years. Are you going to just take a renewal? You don't need any extra money to pay debts or to invest in your RSP or pay for your kids' school, whatever it is. That's a good time to see what's the best for you.
And consider your credit score. We alluded to it before traffic, right? That's very, very important. You can, keep track of it. I believe through most financial institutions, whatever bank, you'll have access to your credit report, usually for free. But you can also, subscribe separately to Equifax and stuff. I did that for years while I was trying to rebuild my credit.
But buyer beware. So the credit score that you see is not the same credit score that we see as mortgage brokers.
Right, especially if you're...
it's not the credit score that the bank sees.
For Credit Karma and stuff like that, yes,
exactly,
absolutely.
So.
But if you subscribe directly with Equifax, for example, which is what I did...
It's still not exactly the same credit score that we will see and that the bank will see.
Okay, so guys, I'll give you an example. I just bought a car, right? So I had to qualify for the financing.
You bought a new car?
I bought a brand new car.
Wow,
My
congrats.
first ever new car.
Congratulations.
Very fun. It's because I totaled my other car hitting a pothole.
Okay.
It was not my choice. Anyway, but when I was doing it, the credit score that I saw in Equifax was actually lower than the credit score that the bank saw when they ran my credit, because they told me what the score was that they saw.
Because I'll give you an example. Generally, when we pull a credit score, we pull Equifax.
Yes.
And then when we send your file into a lender, they actually pull out the other service, which is TransUnion. And then they'll do a comparison of the two.
Yep.
Because most credit agencies catch everything that you're up to. But sometimes the two reports aren't the same. So when they're doing their due diligence to qualify your file, they want to make sure that there's no hidden obligations. There aren't any mispayments. You didn't do a bankruptcy. They just want to make sure that you're going to be a good client that pays his mortgage or her mortgage on time.
Effectively, all these banks are trying to do is manage their risk.
Yep.
So all they're trying to assess
mitigate their
is
risk, yeah.
exactly, are you a flight risk? Is there a chance you're not going to pay? Have you not paid in the past? Have you caused damage to people in the past by not payment, etc.? So understanding your credit score and the reason why the credit score exists and why it goes down when you apply for lots of different credits is because if somebody's applying for several lines of credit or credit cards, etc., it's because they have a need for money.
Yep.
And when somebody's in need for money, there's usually trouble on the horizon. Thus, using your credit cards all the way to the maximum, asking for lots of different credit utilities, and not making your minimum payments are all signs that you are not using your credit properly, and thus should be cautious when approached to a bank.
So if we come back to renewal,
Yes.
right? So Fred alluded to it earlier. Start early. Mm-hmm. Establish your financial goals. If you're going to stay in the house for 2 years because you're planning to sell, then don't sign a 5-year term.
Yeah.
It's just common sense, but a lot of people just sort of jump onto the first renewal option they get from their bank, and the bank is not doing you any favors. They're going to send you a renewal option, and it's probably not under the best rate and conditions. The other thing you have to look at is just because they send you an offer, that's the easy way out. You just sign and you keep going. Shop around. If you start 4 to 6 months before your renewal or your maturity date, you have time to see what's out there. And if you see something you like, lock in, because you can hold the rate for 190 to 120 days. So that protects you. So the baseline is what you have signed or protecting yourself with. But generally, Fred and I, 48 hours before you go to notary or 48 hours before you go to your renewal signature, if we find something better, we can change on a dime. Other things that you have to look at, we mentioned it, fixed versus variable. I was gung-ho on variable for the last 3 months, but variable is becoming a little less interesting right now. because of all the fixed rate offers that we're seeing. And the fixed rate offers are coming out with actually cashback offers. So if you have to refinance, you can use the cashback to pay for the notary. So it's kind of a win-win kind of thing. Prepayment privileges, use them. Adding $50 a month can be a game changer to your mortgage long term. A lot of people say, well, I'll stretch out my amortization. Okay, it'll help your cash flow, but through the length of your mortgage, you'll end up paying more interest. So again, be aware of these things. Anyone want to jump in, or do you want me?
Yeah, I would. If I can make a suggestion, you guys are the experts, but consider doing biweekly payments instead of monthly payments.
Absolutely. Whatever you can afford.
Because that'll give you an extra payment each year.
1 month. One full month directly paid to the capital each year.
That's amazing.
And
totally
watch for traps. A lot of people don't read what they get. We know that people on social media, used to be everyone used to blog. Remember back then it was I'm going to start a blog. Mm-hmm. Now, no one reads anymore. And the same thing when you get a 9-page contract, you go, first page, you look at, just the summary, and then you sign at the end. And you don't read the 9 pages. It's the biggest investment you're making in your life, and you don't take the time to read the 9 pages. And sometimes there are hidden traps that you just don't see. And then when you go and you say, listen, I need to break my mortgage, there's a massive penalty waiting for you. It's clearly written inside the contract, but you didn't take the time to read the contract.
Add-on service idea for you guys. Film reels of yourselves reading people's contracts to them in a shortened, condensed way, because maybe they'll actually watch it and they'll listen to you and find out what's actually in that contract.
And we talked about it before. There are so many promotional offers right now. But again, if you see something you like, read the fine print. Because and we mentioned in the first segment, if it's too good to be true, it's too good to be true. There's no free lunch out there.
Have we seen people start putting their mortgage contracts into ChatGPT or any AI service and asking for the top kind of points and what are the most important things in there?
Oh, you can easily do that. You can just slam it in and pull out the salient points. Anything that might impact me, and boom, you'll get a summary. But again, ChatGPT is not perfect.
Of course.
So my recommendation is you take that hour and you read the 9 pages. You highlight what you don't understand, because sometimes a clause can last a page. It's one sentence that lasts a whole page. And, it's lawyer mumbo jumbo, but lawyer mumbo jumbo is there to protect the lender. It's not to protect the client. So if you don't understand something that's in the clause, then ask Fred or I, or ask someone who knows something about legal contracts.
And we learned recently that you really got to pay attention to every single contract you sign, even Disney Plus. You're signing away your right to sue Disney. As a guy who had an incident with his family at a theme park because he was a Disney Plus subscriber and had signed a contract agreeing to never sue Disney, he couldn't sue them for the accident at the theme park.
That is wild.
Yeah, you always need to read the fine print on anything that you sign, even if it's on your phone. Those terms and conditions? Very, very important. This is Under One Roof MTL on CJAD 800. I'm Robin Flynn with Fred Pichette and Martin Spalding of Fred and Martin Mortgages, LJ Aguinaga of LJ Realties. Breaking news at this hour, Mark Carney has gone to the Governor General and requested that she dissolve Parliament and called an election. It is official. Canadians will be headed to the polls for a federal election on April 28th. And the Prime Minister, who will now be referred to as the Liberal leader, is running in Nepean in the Ottawa area.
So let's add a twist to all this. It'll be interesting to see what promises when it comes to housing that all the parties are going to make over the next 5 weeks.
It's a
huge
issue.
Exactly, how that's going to impact housing, how it's going to impact the Bank of Canada's decisions, and how it's going to impact real estate in general across Canada.
They've already started making announcements to that effect. He's already mentioned that the GST is going to be removed off of all
new construction.
New construction under $1 million.
Yeah.
The Liberals have made that promise?
Carney made that promise.
Okay.
Yeah.
Piggybacking, I think, on what Polyev had said it previously. And then he's eliminated the capital gains increase as well. So a lot of promises are being made right now.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens after that.
I wonder if we can afford all those promises, though.
Never can.
Yeah. At least it's not. At least it's not 36 trillion.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see.
Okay.
We shall see. Okay. Right now, it's a difficult time to be a landlord in Montreal because of changes to short-term rentals. If you're somebody that rents things out on Airbnb, we now know you can only do that in the summer months in Montreal, which reduces your income potential, which has a lot of investment property owners looking towards long-term rentals instead of short-term rentals because it's a safer choice. So how can you ensure that you are a great landlord that people actually want to rent from and make some money for yourself too? Because that's the point of having an investment property, right?
I think we should talk to the landlord.
Who is the landlord in the room right now?
That would be LJ.
Now, LJ, how do you choose an investment property? Because I know this is something you have a lot of experience with.
So it comes down to your investment thesis, right? And things that I look for in a property that I'm going to be buying to rent out in the future. First of all, it's location, right? The classic adage, location, location, location. I want to know where are people going to be living that need to commute downtown, that are realistically employed, so what do they care about? So I always look at where do they work, where do the kids go to school, how far are they from public transit? These are the first three things we're going to check out. After that, it's what improvements can I make to the property in order to really optimize the value? And when we talk improvements, we're looking at, can I renovate the kitchens, the bathrooms? Can I give a facelift to the floors, paint job, stuff of that nature? I'll usually look for a property that doesn't need major capital expenditures on the exterior, where all the work is really in the interior, because at the end of the day, tenants are willing to pay for interior renovations. They expect the roof to work. They expect the foundation to work. They have much more of an emotional opinion on how nice this kitchen is or how nice this bathroom is, or if the floors are heated or if they're not. Right?
So you're less concerned about curb appeal and more concerned about the inside of the property.
Not less concerned. It's more so that I want to find a property that already has some of those capital expenditures things taken care of. So when I find a property where the previous landlord has taken great care of it because they redid the roof, because they did some work to the foundation, because they'd redid some brickwork, etc., those are the things I like to see, because they invested in things that they realistically didn't get a great return from an emotional perspective from future tenants, but I can take advantage of that and then do the work on the interior and then start getting much better returns on the property.
How do you juggle what to charge vis-a-vis vacancy? In other words, would you rather try to maximize and wait to get someone to pay premium, or would you just want to get a tenant in there because any empty month is a cost?
No, I will wait on something vacant if I need to. If I believe the rental value is there, obviously, I will wait for a month or two or even 3 to get the rent that we expect to get for that unit, because at the end of the day, on an investment property, every $100 a month in rental revenue above, kind of increased, represents roughly $24,000 in property valuation.
Wow.
To put it simply.
So
if I can rent out a property for $400 more a month, one unit effectively, that's $100,000 in property value shifted, right? When we look at cap rates, when we go through the whole pro forma effectively, that's how we look at it. So to me, if I have to wait 3 months vacant at, let's say, $2,000, no problem. If I rent it out and I hit that threshold or that target that I've been looking to hit in this case because it wasn't the right season before and now we're getting closer to the July 1st or September 1st or one of the big trigger dates, well, that property's now worth an extra $100,000.
So you're playing the long game then?
The $8,000 loss, quote unquote, that I took over those 4 months of vacancy is non-representative.
Now, July 1st has typically been moving day in Quebec, and that's very much a Quebec thing. But more and more of my friends who rent are moving in off periods, like not the July 1st moving. Is this becoming more common, LJ?
I wouldn't say it's more common. There are 4 main trigger dates in Quebec. The biggest one being July 1st. The second one being September 1st, because we have a lot of people starting new jobs, and we have a lot of schools starting up, obviously. The next one becomes May 1st, because we also have all the universities. We're a large university city, and some of those leases will be May 1 to April 30th. And then finally Jan 1, because of people moving in for usually jobs and stuff of that nature. So those are the 4 busiest months of rentals, and seasons kind of go along with that.
What about tenant selection? How important is it to get good tenants?
Imperative.
Imperative. So what kind of due diligence do you go through when you're analyzing whether you should rent this property to tenant A or tenant B?
So credit score, same as a bank. We look at their credit score. We pull basically their history of payments. So have they missed a payment? If they did, what was it? A lot of times, the most common one that we'll accept is you got into a fight with Bell. You stopped paying that cell phone line. You thought that it was done, and now you obviously haven't paid it for 2 years, and you didn't even know that this was the case. But if somebody's obviously recurring non-payments with lots of different things, that's a problem. We'll look at income. Do they have enough income to support these payments? Where are they getting their money from? For students, are their parents co-signing with them? Do they have a large savings amount available to them? We look at criminal records. Want to make sure we're not dealing with criminals and potentially going to bring more problems to our building than anything else. We look at rental board records. Is this somebody who likes to appear at the rental board regularly because they fight every single increase, because they seem to not get along with any of their landlords, because of getting into fights with their neighbors, etc.? So those are the things we're going to check first of all. And then the most important thing, which people typically overlook, it's feeling. It's gut. Is this person going to give me trouble? Is this person showed up on time? Did they look presentable? Did they look like everything was okay? Did they speak properly? How you present yourself is super, super important. Now, again, if the credit and stuff doesn't line up, I don't care how that presentation will. But if it's somebody who was late, who doesn't respond properly, who is struggling to communicate, we're going to have a rough relationship.
It always come back to the credit. I find out, like, either to get approved for a loan or to get approved for a rent.
Look, credit's super important, don't get me wrong, but we've definitely approved files that credit was below ideal, but it was because of XYZ reasons that made sense. They had a story that lined up that made sense, that everything followed through. They were always communicated on time. They were always ahead of the game. They always submitted everything properly. So if you have your stuff together, it's okay that you went through some sort of mishap in life at some point, you know?
I got a quick follow-up question, if you permit.
Of course.
What about smokers and pets and things like that?
So that's a mixed bag. Smoking is a hard no, because getting rid of the smoke smell can cost up to $4,000 sometimes, depending on paint and whatnot. So we do absolutely no smoking in all of our units. And then pets, it depends on the landlord. I personally allow pets in my units.
Okay.
People want a companion, but they're fully responsible. If they destroy the floors, you're responsible for replacing my floors. If they do any damage, if they bark all day and they're causing trouble to the neighbors and whatnot, you're fully responsible. But again, I think that most of our tenants are responsible enough to have a pet, unless we don't have issues with them.
LJ, one more thing I want to have your opinion on. I love to say to our client that a rental property, it is a business. Because most of people, they mix it up with the interest and how to manage that rental property. But for me, it's clearly a business. It's something that you should not put that much emotion. It's really like, yes, you need to treat your tenant well, but what's your take on this?
I mean, it is a business, 100%, right? Even on your declaration at the year end, it's effectively an additional business that you're adding to your income declaration. Getting emotional about anything is never a good look. It never helps with anyone. So, yeah, you have to make sure to keep a concerned eye and make sure that you're making the right judgment call.
And if you want to get into an investment property and you want to take some of that hassle out of managing the property, give LJ's team a call at the Plex Doctor, 514-709-6397. You can visit their website at plexdoctor.com. You're listening to Under One Roof, MTL on CJD 800. Wow, things are getting hot.
We have to do a segment called Behind the Scenes.
We really do. The conversations that happen behind the scenes here at Under One Roof.
It was getting heated.
It was getting heated.
Yeah.
In the best way. We're all friends here. We're all friends.
Yeah, absolutely.
We disagree on things, and I think that makes for richer discussion, to be honest.
I know, but some of the stuff that we discussed during the commercial break actually should be discussed on air.
Yeah. We were talking about different kinds of loans and income verification. What kind of loans require income verification? Seems to be mainly mortgages. Nobody else seems to really care where your money's coming from. They'll just give you money. Okay, we're going to go to our property of the week because this is my favorite part of the show. LJ, what do you have for us this week?
Are you looking to live in one of Montreal's hottest neighborhoods? Welcome to 1910 Rue des Bassins, apartment 403, a stylish 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom condo in the heart of Griffintown, listed at $625,000. Enjoy an open concept layout, sleek quartz kitchen, and floor-to-ceiling windows that fill the space with natural light. This 4th-floor unit features 2 private balconies, perfect for city views and fresh air, plus garage parking and a storage locker, a rare bonus. Located steps from the Lachine Canal, bike paths, parks, and top-rated cafes with easy access to public transit and the future REM station, this is urban living at its best. Don't miss this opportunity. If you're looking to get your barbecue fix in the area, stop by Le Boucan for some amazing southern barbecue.
Amazing spot. It is so good. So good. So everything is smoked there. Even the desserts are smoked. It's extraordinary.
LJ, what kind of bonus is it when you get actually parking with a property?
As in, how much would I value it at?
Yeah, what's a parking space worth in a building like the one you just discussed?
$50,000 to $65,000.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
And not all apartments come with parking.
Most don't.
Mm.
Depends on the price point, depends on the size. 1 bedrooms typically don't. 2 bedrooms, you hope that they do, obviously. 3 and plus will, realistically. But yeah, I've seen parking spots sold. The most expensive parking spot sold I ever saw was in the first Tour de Canadien that sold for $120,000.
Wow.
To park your car.
Park a car.
Wow.
And if it comes with your unit, even if you don't have a car, take it, because then you can rent out that parking spot to another tenant in the building who doesn't have parking.
Well, it adds value to your. It adds value to your.
It has value when you sell it,
Absolutely.
I guess.
And you can typically sell it separate even if you wanted. I've seen people who had 2 parking spots sell 1 parking spot, collect on their 50, 60, 75K or whatever, and off they went.
Nice. Love it. Love to see it. Trivia question of the week brought to you by Felix and Norton Cookies. What is the difference between an open and closed mortgage? We will answer that question after we answer our other question from before traffic. Somebody texted in when we were talking about being a good landlord and maximizing your investment. How are you allowed to ask for a security deposit in Quebec? LJ, is this something that's legally allowed? Because I know it's definitely happening if it isn't.
The answer is no. A landlord cannot legally ask for security deposit. However, a tenant can voluntarily offer a security deposit. In what cases would a tenant potentially do this? In a case where the person has no credit. They recently arrived in Canada, they don't have any credit history, they've been refused at 1, 2, 3, 4 apartments, they really need a place to live, and they understand that because they have no history, nobody wants to take a risk on them, and thus they offer a security deposit. There's some places that are fully furnished, and sometimes people understand that they're not going to want to rent to somebody unless they give a security deposit for the furniture, stuff of that nature. So a landlord cannot legally ask for one. However, we can see one happen in select scenarios and cases to ensure that a tenant gets a unit.
Is it a percentage or is it a flat or what?
It's 1 month of rent.
The most common one would be 1 month of rent.
1 month of rent. Okay.
I've seen people who
2
didn't
months?
want to accept pets, and the person said, you know what? How about if I leave a $500 deposit for my pet up front in case he were to do any damage? Like, we've seen different things happen, but the most common one is 1 month.
And it's very different in different parts of the country. So if you are moving to a different province, make sure you know what the laws are, because I have a friend who moved to Ontario, and in Toronto, the kind of stuff she was being asked for to be able to qualify for an apartment were wild. It was like 6 months rent plus a security deposit. Like it's the Wild West out there.
Can I ask one more question, going back to the other segment? How important is it for someone like you that actually has investment properties, that is a landlord, to know the ins and outs of all the Régie rules?
Super important. We get calls all the time from tenants who say, you can't do this. And then I need to make sure that I'm answering, we can do this, and this is the law, and you're entitled to go find help from a lawyer, do whatever you got to do. But I need to be confident in the answers that I'm given, because we're making decisions every single day, and we need to know what the law is, so we make sure we're making the right decisions.
So you highly recommend that you actually study the rules before you become a landlord so that you don't get a fast one isn't pulled on you.
That or hire a property management company, right? One of the things, or one of the advantages of hiring a company is that you have somebody to hold accountable. If they make a mistake, they better pay for the mistake that they made. It's no longer just, I made a mistake, I didn't know better. So by hiring a company, yes, there's a fee associated to it, but you're paying for their years of experience. Make sure you hire somebody who's reliable and trustworthy.
And by the way, I've met his guy a couple times, Thierry.
He's great.
He's a firecracker.
No, and a lot of people, they don't want to take care of the property after a certain time. They move on to something else, and they appreciate if a company like you take care of it.
100%.
Absolutely. Trivia question of the week brought to you by Felix and Norton Cookies. What is the difference between an open and a closed mortgage? The answer, open mortgages allow unlimited prepayments without charges, while closed mortgages allow up to 15% of the original principal per year with fees for exceeding that limit. Open mortgages typically have higher interest rates for that added flexibility. Noel in Saint Laurent was the first person to text in at 514-790-0800. Check your messages, Noel. We need your address so we can send you delicious cookies from Felix and Norton Cookies.
Way to go, Noel.
Nicely done. What did we learn this week? We learned that inflation is up, which means interest rates might stay stagnant for the next little while. We also learned that landlords are not allowed to ask for a security deposit, but tenants can voluntarily offer one if they want to give themselves a competitive advantage. We also learned that an election is being called. We're headed to the polls April 28th. That could impact housing as we wait to see what the various candidates offer and promise to provide to Canadians. That's pretty much it for us for this week. We will be back next Sunday at 12 p.m. right here on CJD 800. In the meantime, you can learn more about the show and the guys on underoneroofmtl.com or get in touch with them individually. LJ, where do people go to reach you?
Check out our website, ljrealties.com, or on all socials with the handle LJ Aguinaga, that's LJAGUINAGA, or LJ Realties, that's IES at the end. You can also call or text me at 514-500-4040, or check out our property management company, that's plexdr.com, or 514-709-6397.
There we go. A lot of numbers to work. Don't worry, everything is online too. So if you didn't write it down, don't stress about it. And this is also available as a podcast. So you can always go back and listen to it after the fact to get all that information. Fred Martin, where do people go to reach you?
So it's fredmartin.com. All our digits are on the website. That's the best way to get in touch with us. So fredmartin.com.
Fred and Martin.
.com.
If you missed anything, you can listen to the show in its entirety. As I mentioned, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen to podcasts, this show is there. For LJ, Fred, and Martin, I'm Robin Flynn. Have a great Sunday.